All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'm Quinn Hegarty. I'm an internship and career advisor in the Career Center at Columbia College Chicago. And I want to thank you, first of all, for coming to tonight's edition of our free summer film school series in collaboration with the Cinema and Television Arts Department. I would also like to thank Sarah Schroeder from Alumni Relations and Karen Loop of Semester in LA for their support for tonight's event, and my Career Center colleague Chaka Reeves for spearheading this programming series. So our special guest tonight would love to know a little bit more about you, members of the audience. So I'm putting up 3 poll questions about where you're at in your educational journey, geographically, and in your career. And you should see those now. You will also notice, if you look down below at the little bar, that we have the Q&A enabled. So please feel free to ask questions and Shani will answer them as we get to them throughout the evening. All right, I'm going to leave this poll up for just about another minute, but I will now hand things over to our hosts, Essay and Chloe.
Hi. Hello and welcome to Free Summer Film School, The Reality of Television with Shani Black. I'm Essay Obrimah. I'm a writer and producer and an MFA producing candidate.
And I'm Chloe Herring. I'm a former journalist and a grad student in the Creative Producing program. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Columbia College Chicago alum, Shani Black.
So a bit about Shani Black. She's currently an executive producer with over 10 years of talk, court, lifestyle, reality docuseries, and casting experience. As a member of the Writers Guild of America West and the Producers Guild of America, Ms. Black has produced unscripted shows for MTV, OWN, Discovery, HGTV, Warner Brothers Telepictures, NBC Universal, CBS, Fox, and Facebook Watch. Most recently, she was nominated for 2 Daytime Emmy Awards, one of which was for her work on Red Table Talk, as well as the NAACP Awards.
Ms. Black credits Columbia College and the AEMM program with giving her the confidence and the tools she needed to compete with the industry's best. While attending Columbia College Chicago, she was an RA and worked at the Portfolio Center. Ms. Black currently resides in Los Angeles with her daughter and is also a part owner of a health and beauty publication called Coverings Magazine, which she is developing into a lifestyle talk show. She is currently repped by APA.
Thank you, Shani, for joining us today. We're excited to have you and appreciate you taking the time to spend with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Same. So we wanted to kind of break the ice with a little game for you. We just want to play a game of word association. So I'm going to bring up some words, terms, and you tell us what's the first thing that pops to your head. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First question. Chicago deep dish.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say it's more than one word. I think it was like college hangover food.
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with, it doesn't have to be one word.
It's like, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, whatever pops into your head. So you said college what?
Hangover, that was a hangover food.
Fair. Okay, maybe this word's a little darker. Quarantine. Tell us.
Quarantine?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, quarantine would have to be, oh my gosh, naps. Lots of naps during quarantine.
Fair. I just woke up with a great one myself. Okay, next word. Diversity.
Needed.
Yeah. Say less.
I mean, what else can I say about that?
Right.
We got a whole nother webinar about diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Next term, 1104.
Oh my God, you have to refresh my memory. 1104.
1104 is currently the film building at Columbia College. Maybe it wasn't when you were
It wasn't. I didn't take classes in the film building.
Wow.
So,
Tell us.
So that's where I'm just like, I have no idea where that is exactly.
1104 South Wabash, right, SA?
Yep.
Okay, tell us more. What buildings did you take classes in?
Oh my God, that was so long ago. My buildings were mostly on Michigan Avenue,
Okay.
the main building. And then I really don't remember. I just remember I lived in 2 East 8. That's where I was an RA. So I feel like my life was either in 2 East 8 or at the Portfolio Center, which I think is what you guys now call is it the Career Center now? What is it?
Is it?
What is it? I
Do you
think it's
remember
like,
what building it was in?
Familiar with me.
okay, we see next.
But what we can say about Columbia is, oh yeah, here's a message from Quinn. Quinn says, yes, Career Center is the new name for the Portfolio Center.
Got it. Okay, I'm keeping up.
The school is expanding and growing and all of that stuff. The Career Center is now in the new Student Center, which just opened last semester. Or was it the fall semester? I don't remember, but it just recently opened.
In the fall, yeah.
Okay, good. I was there during construction. I paid a visit during construction. I wanted to set up an office there. So that's how nice it is.
So we did a little bit of research on you. We know you're from Texas, so that's why we brought up this next term. It's Beyonce.
Oh my God. We're still doing word association?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Destiny's Child. It's, you know.
Dun, 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 yeah. Okay, so this has something to do with pop culture, viral moments, and the red table talk. The word is entanglement.
Drama. Unnecessary. Too much.
She said, and that's on that.
All right, we're gonna move on. We have 3 more. The next word is spin-off.
Ooh. Spin-off would have to be phase 2. Chapter 2, the next success. You always want a spin-off.
Nice. Tell us your thoughts on Generation Z.
I think there's a lot to be learned from every generation, but especially you have to keep with certain generations when you're making television and media so that you stay on point and you stay on trend and you know what your audience is.
Yeah, certainly. Maybe we'll get into that. Last word in our icebreaker word association game is viral memes.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of one right now that's gonna come to mind. The one that I love, it's probably old. Everyone has seen it, but it's the little girl who says, "Worry about yourself." Isn't that what she says? She's like, "Worry about yourself." That's my whole motto to everything. Just worry about yourself.
That's great. Yeah. You've had a very long, very successful career, and one of the things that was interesting when SA and I were looking into your career was that you've been on so many shows that have had viral moments. So I wanted to throw that one in there and see how you responded. Well, thank you for that. That was our icebreaker session. We're going to move on to questions. Do you want to take it away, SA?
Yep, let's go. So the first question, what did you do or start doing when you were at Columbia that helped pave the way for the career that you have?
The first thing I did was I worked any internship I could find. I knew that, of course, I was at the time it was the Art, Entertainment, and Media Management program. And so I was going into television. And while I was in school, I was working on TV shows that came to Chicago. Any show that came to Chicago, I would try to find out who the production manager was and send them my resume. And I also had friends who were working on certain sets, so then they would give me their contact information. I think one summer, I worked the entire summer traveling with American Idol. And then when that was over, I went back to school in the fall. So not only was I working, and I had a full resume when I left Columbia. That was, you know, I started as an intern. By the time I got out of Columbia, I already had PA credits. So that when I graduated, I was already going into production management. So I skipped a few steps, you know what I'm saying? Because I did all my work while I was in school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone to do that, internships. That's the way to go.
Noted.
Got it. Next question. So what drew you to unscripted television? And after that, could you also tell us some of like the notable differences between unscripted versus scripted television?
I actually started in scripted. That was one of my first like big internships in LA. But I ended up in unscripted because right after Columbia, I got hired with a company that was opening a Chicago office, and they did all HGTV shows. So that's kind of how my career went to unscripted. It's kind of like when you get out of school, it's like, who's gonna hire you first? And that's kind of the direction that I went. And I really loved it. So that's how I ended up in unscripted. And the difference I would say between scripted and unscripted is, of course, in scripted, there's a writer's room. You're writing a script. You're writing a story about, you're developing characters, you're writing stories. There's a whole separate process to the scripted world. Unscripted, you're working with real people and their stories. So if you have a reality show, let's say, I don't know, what's your favorite reality show? Just give me one.
Let's
Love
say,
Island?
as I said, Love Island.
Okay, say it's Love Island, okay? So I'm working with a group of people on Love Island who are looking for love, causing drama, whatever, okay? Even though they're real people and they have a real storyline, I still, even though it's unscripted and developing a story for each individual person per episode, but it's based off of their actual personality, who they really are. With scripted, I'm making up a person. They could do whatever I want them to do.
Right.
Unscripted, you have to talk these people into doing what you need them to do to get the episode done, because that is what you told the network you were going to give them. So it's a different level of pressure. They're still writing, but it's not the same as, if that makes sense, as an actual script that you're turning in with multiple pages and act breaks and all the scenes and locations. It's, so there's similarities, but it's a lot different too.
So for scripted television, as you said, there's a writer's room, and this is like, you know, happening during the development stages. What you're saying is that development for unscripted television, what does it require? Like more like a treatment, or because you're still creating these situations, it sounds like, right?
I would say development for, let's say, unscripted, that's a whole different, that's even before your show gets greenlit.
Wow.
Going into development for scripted, let's say, I don't know, NBC comes to you, Chloe, and says, I want you to head up a show, an unscripted show, and we're gonna put you in charge, okay? So you're the EP, let's say, okay? Or you're the development executive, okay? You have to then create a crew or a team that is your development producer, who is going to help you flush out what the idea is, because they may have only given you like a log line, or this is a great idea we had, I need you to develop it out, like create it into something.
Right.
You have your development producer who's going to help you flesh it out. You have a casting director who's going to help you go find those real people, because you're going to have to make a sizzle reel to sell it and say, yes, this can be done. You're going to need an editor to edit that sizzle together. So that's a whole different department and a different leg before you even get to pre-production and casting and shooting. It's I could go through the whole thing, but it's a lot. Development is a whole nother thing. If you want to talk about production, when you get to the production side, the show is already sold. The network knows what they want. They have the crew, they have the cast, they know what they're gonna do. You're coming in then and making their vision an actual reality for 20 episodes, 30 episodes, 10 seasons of The Bachelor, whatever it is. But I think it's more detailed than the question that you're asking me. I might have to break it down even more, and I'm not confusing people.
Oh, sorry, I'm not trying to talk over you. Here we are in this
virtual landscape.
Yeah. I guess I was just trying to get at what you were saying about you have your cast, right? Your unscripted cast. These are real people, and you're trying to get them to do things that you already said to the production company, like here, or the studio, like, okay, we said this is gonna happen. And so like, I was just trying to get at, like, is this you're saying this happens during the production phase?
This is during production.
Wow. Okay.
So you're shooting, okay? Say you're in the field, you're shooting a show, you have all these different personalities. When you're working with multiple people, you can't just say, okay, I need you to go over there and fall in love with this guy. It's like, no, I need you you have to talk them through what the show is. This is why you're here. And you've done all of that during the casting process too, hopefully to build a relationship with them. Because again, they're real people. This is reality. If I walk up to you and say, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, you're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. But if I spent time talking to you, getting to know you, I'm asking about your parents, then we've built a relationship as a producer and as a cast member. So if I come to you and say, this is what I need you to do, it's for the story, you know you're on television, you know what your role is, you know, so to speak, but it's easier to do that. And that's how you kind of manage people that you work with. That's how you build relationships. That's how you kind of get people to understand where you're coming from and your storyline. That helps me understand who you are as a person, so that I don't tell the network, oh, you know, Essay, she's sweet as she can be. If I know you, I'm like, no, she's not that sweet. You know what I'm saying? It's just that type of thing. It's a process. Everything is a process. Reality TV it's something. It's fun, but it's really in depth.
So I think you've really gone into somewhat of detail of like what a producer does with unscripted television. Can you talk a bit more about what production management and line producing looks like for unscripted television?
I can't go into line producing because I haven't been a line producer. But I can tell you line producers, in my definition, they're the ones that they handle the money and the budget. Your budget is broken down into lines. So that's what they do. As far as, what was the other one? Production managers? Production managers manage the production. It's usually you have a production manager, then they are handling the logistics of the shoot. They're handling like getting your releases, getting your permits. If you have anyone coming on the show, making sure they're cleared legally, just, you know, background checks, all of the logistical kind of like things that producers don't want to deal with. But production managers, like I wanted to be a production manager and a line producer when I came out of Columbia. That was my #1 goal. But after like a year or two, I was like, no, I think I do want to do producing just because I'm creative and I like being around people. But I will say, if you're extremely organized and you're good with numbers and you're just kind of just very, just like everything has to be in its place, but you like television, being a production manager or a line producer is probably the way to go. If you kind of are up in the air, like, oh, I know I like TV, I just don't know what I like doing in television, but I like math, line producer. I like accounting, line producer. I like handling a lot of money, line producer. I like telling people they cannot spend this on a wardrobe or whatever. It's kind of like a control thing, line producer. Production managers fall under the line producer. They manage, you know, logistics, like I said. Under that is a production coordinator who kind of deals with like managing the PAs. So then you have your production assistants under your production management team, and they run the errands, they get the coffee, they make the copies, they do the grocery runs if you have, you know, a set kitchen, things like that.
So we've kind of gone a little bit over development. We spoke about production. What can you tell people interested in post-production about what they can expect with unscripted television?
I have not worked in post.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you much about post. I mean, I'm not an editor. I'm not a post supervisor. I will say just in general, there is an entire post department with unscripted, like there is with scripted television, but with unscripted, you have your post supervisor who manages the schedule for the show being delivered and being edited. And they have their editors and they have their AEs who are their assistant editors. So it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole department that kind of, after you produce a show, everything goes to post. Post makes sure that everything is cut together, it's, you know, clean, and then it gets delivered to the network for air.
Do you have any interaction with the post team?
It depends on the show. Some shows, usually when I do talk shows, I will, after I shoot a show, or while I'm shooting a show, I will take what we call post notes. So if I'm in the control room with the, you know, with another executive and we're going through my show as it's happening, that person may say to me, okay, we need to make this package shorter because we rolled in a package in the studio that was too long. You know, so it's like, cut it down in post. When they say do it in post, that's usually when you're taking those notes. We're going to cut down a package. We're going to take out the entire Act 5 because Act 4 went over and it was better. So then you're taking those notes, giving them over to post. Post works their magic. They'll send me a cut. I check my notes based on what I gave them. If there's anything else, I give more notes. If it's great, I sign off and I say, this is amazing. And that's it.
Cool.
Okay. What did the process of getting into WGA, especially for for unscripted content, look like, and then also for the PGA?
For the I'll start with the PGA because I feel like that's the one that would probably be helpful to everyone. If you're not in the PGA, well, the PGA, of course, is the Producers Guild. That was one of the first goals I had when I started working, is I wanted to get into the Producers Guild. For one, because they have, it's a big networking group. I've gotten multiple jobs from Producers Guild events. They have this great networking event, like it's a speed mixer, but the Producers Guild is not actually a guild. It's not a union. So to get in, you go to their website, you see where you fit career-wise with your title. If you're a student, I think they have a student level, they have an associate level, they have an executive level. There's different levels. So I knew that I could get at that time as an associate producer. I was like, okay, I can get in at this level. I meet the requirements. There's requirements that they have listed. And you also need to find, I think, 2 people to basically vouch for you and say, yes, I worked with this person, she's great, whatever. It's not hard, but it's not easy. You just have to work up to a certain level and find someone that you know who's in. And then once you get in, you pay your dues. And I think it's maybe like an annual fee and then like twice a year or something like that. I don't remember, but even though I'm still in it, but I don't, I don't remember what the cost is and everything, but I will say they are more of, I think it's really more of a social club, if that's okay to say, because they throw the best parties.
Wow, things I wouldn't know yet, right? Essay?
Right.
So when you go to LA, it's like you want to get into the Producers Guild, because the Producers Guild, they have a great holiday party. They have the great mixers where you meet people. They also, if you're in the guild, in the Producers Guild, you also get screeners. So before award season, like around October, November, FedEx and UPS are at your door every day with screeners of movies that have come out earlier that year, or things that have come out, things that haven't even come out yet. Like I've had like screening parties at my house and the movie hasn't even hit the theater yet, which I think that's okay. But it's fun. I love the Producers Guild. So I would say that's beneficial to anyone that's a producer because it's obtainable. You can do that. You can get to that level. You can get into that group. You can meet who you need to meet. You can mingle, you can network, you can get jobs. Okay? The Writers Guild is completely different. The Writers Guild is an actual guild. It is a union. You have a pension when you retire. Like that is the goal. The Writers Guild and the Directors Guild. The way that I got into the Writers Guild was I was a producer on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, which I still believe is true, is the only talk show that qualifies you for the Writers Guild. So any other unscripted, talk shows out there, I believe, don't, or I would say daytime talk shows. How about that? So once I was hired on Dr. Phil, was a producer, that earned me, I guess, qualified me for the Writers Guild, and that's how I got in. And that's totally different. Like I said, you earn residuals, which is amazing. You have, they have amazing parties too, but you have to be invited. And so I would say that's the difference between the two.
Could you tell us what about Dr. Phil is different that qualifies the producers or writers for the Writers Guild?
I can't officially say what it is because I don't know. So I have no idea. I didn't ask. You're letting me in? That's great. I'm not asking questions.
I feel that. So you kind of talked about your entry points to the industry already. What do you think are some ways that students and alums can get started setting themselves up to stand out, especially for these entry-level positions?
Standing out for entry-level positions?
Correct.
I would say, I guess I would have to say, if you are in a major city, let me do major city and then just in general. So remind me. So major city, I would say like LA, New York, even probably Chicago, but I can speak from experience from LA. LA is all about who you know. Like that's just what it is. So just like I said, you should get into the Producers Guild. The who you know people are in the Producers Guild. So you can send out resumes all day, but if they don't recognize your name or they don't recognize your college or there isn't someone to kind of vouch for you, so to speak, it's gonna be a little bit harder. So you really have to stand out by doing the work. And the work is putting yourself out there. The work is networking. The work is making friends. The work is the people that if you're at Columbia, you went to Columbia, you graduated from Columbia, you live in LA, you need to go find some more Columbia people because Columbia is a village. Columbia will not I won't let someone else from Columbia fail, is basically what I'm saying. So, and I feel like we're all like that. I hope we're all like that. So that's kind of how you stand out, I can say, for big cities. The other thing I would say is if you're going to send a resume out and you want it to stand out, make sure you don't need a lot of graphics. You don't need a lot of color. You don't need your picture. There's certain things that are just overboard. It just needs to be clean. It needs to be direct. It needs to be to the point. If you're entry level and you're applying for a position that, let's say it's a PA position, but your resume says that you're a writer, producer, director, actor, all these things, I'm not looking at your resume because you don't know what you want to do. You don't know who you are. So just get to the point of what you're doing and what you want to do. Yes, I understand you want to be multiple things, but focus on one thing at a time, build that and keep going up. If you want to work on a film set, then tailor your resume. You should have a film resume, a TV resume, a cast. You can have multiple resumes, and that resume can change for every job that you apply to. standing out and getting a job and applying for jobs is a full-time job. I think I had maybe 20 versions of resumes when I first started working. And it was like version 19. I was like, what happened to version 1? Version 1, I don't like that anymore. So it's kind of just changing what you're, changing or adapting to what's out there too. I don't know if that answered your question. If anybody else wants me to go in depth, I can, but I think that's the main thing that I can say.
You certainly gave a lot of information there. You also told us to remind you about generally, because you said this is what you do in the large cities. What would you say you do just generally?
Just generally to stand out? I think the general part was the resume, because if you're not in a big city, you're still gonna have to send a resume out. The other thing I was gonna say is probably, I think that's it. I think I ran it all together. The general is the resume.
Got it.
Let's talk about mistakes. So what would you say would be like the biggest pitfalls that young producers should be aware of as they start working?
I would say the biggest, what'd you say? Would you ask me the biggest pitfall?
Mm-hmm.
For young producers.
I think the biggest mistake is trying to move too fast. If you want to be a producer, you can't go from producer and think you're going to automatically jump to executive producer. I think that's a mistake that people make, or they have, they're just not realistic about what the industry is. It's like, you have to work. Like you're not going to be a PA tomorrow and be a director 2 years from now. It just takes time is what I'm saying. So this isn't a get rich quick kind of like career path, if that makes sense. You're going to be doing this for a while. So you need to enjoy it, take it slow, enjoy it, have fun, don't rush it, meet people, learn from your experiences, learn from your mistakes. If you're gonna cry, cry, just not at your desk, go outside, because I've had those moments. It's okay. It will get done. It's television. It's been around before most of us. It'll thrive, it'll be okay. The other thing I think, as far as like mistakes to avoid, I think one of the biggest things is, if you're a producer and you have a PA, an intern, the best thing you could do is teach them and kind of be a mentor to them, because before you know it, you never know who your intern is or who your PA is. Just like I said, oh, you have to be slow. That person's dad could be a network executive and you would never know. And they're like, and I've had it happen with friends where it's like, oh, I had this PA and I didn't know his dad was an exec at Warner Brothers. And then Warner Brothers is calling saying, oh, we've heard great things about you. So I would just say, treat everyone with respect. I see a lot of people that are just mean just for the sake of being mean. That's a huge mistake, because you really don't know what's going to happen. I've seen supervising producers who kind of like got stalled in their career, and now their intern from 10 years ago is now their executive producer.
Wow.
And they were mean to that intern. So it's just things like that. It happens. There will be jumps in your career, and you will run into these people again, because it's a big industry, but it's all about, everybody knows everyone. It's all about word of mouth. If you're a terrible producer, a terrible person, people will talk about you. So just try to be nice to everyone.
Got it.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of crying, just not at your desk, that kind of gets to this next question, right, about stress management. So what advice do you have about managing stress, because it is a stressful job, and in what ways do you unwind?
Don't drink too much. First thing I can tell you. Learn to cope otherwise. stress management, I think you have to know what your limits are as far as stress, which you really won't know that until you had some serious stress and you know what your breaking point is. I think a big trending phrase right now is self-care. It's okay to step away and tell someone, I'm not available right now. Say it in a nice way. Just like, oh, I just need 10 minutes to myself just to, you know, to get it together and just take that moment. You will have times where it's like you may not have time, but it's a lot of, I don't even want to answer that question. Because this career path is stressful. And I think you just have to figure it out as you go and find out what works for you. I would say friends. It's easy to call your friends, especially ones that do what you do. And they understand, and they're probably having a worse day than you are. So, but yeah, I would say definitely you need someone you can talk to, someone that you can just vent to and just kind of just breathe. And also, like I said, it's stressful, but it's television. It'll be okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not the end of the world. If you get so stressed out that you can't do that job, there's other jobs. There are other producers who are going to be nicer. There are other execs out there. There's a whole big world out there. Don't get stuck working on one show. And I do not believe in being miserable. That is something that I learned later. But it's like, at this point, it's like, if I go to a job and I'm not happy, I may love the show, it may be great, but it's just like, okay, I'm not happy here. I'm at the point now where I can say, oh, okay, I can leave and go someplace else. Not everyone can do that, but just know that at some point it's okay to walk away. You're not, your health and your mental health is more important, because if something happens to you, they're going to replace you anyway. So that's the bottom line. So just figure it out. You got to figure it out for yourself.
That's so interesting that you talk about happiness, right? Because I wonder if, in your experience, have you ever been in a situation where you were like, you know what, I don't know if it's the crew, I don't know if what it is, but I'm not feeling this. And how did you kind of like, and whether it was the profession as a whole, or if it was just like, I don't feel right in this situation? That's a tough question, but I just
re-ask it. Ask it again. I know what you're saying, but ask it again.
Yeah. So like, how do you know, like, if you are in a situation where you're like, I'm not feeling comfortable, I'm not feeling at my best, like, I don't know if I'm happy here. How do you, I guess, determine whether it's, maybe if it's just the situation or if it's the entire profession? You're like, wait, you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I want to say, okay, as far as if it's a profession, I've had moments where I have thought, okay, should I try something else other than television? And then as soon as I have that thought, I get a phone call for a show that I want to work on. That's been like in the back of my mind. So it's like, I guess I'm not stopping. So, but as far as like, if it's a crew and I'm not feeling it, or I just feel uneasy about that show, then I know it's, I may not be a good fit. You just have to sometimes realize, okay, if everyone else seems to be getting along and I'm in the mix and I'm still just like, this isn't it, then that is not it. It's okay. Go someplace else, do another show. If it's an issue with your team and you're managing that team, then you have a conversation with that team and you let them know we're all in this together and we're going to pull through because we have to be here till the end of the season. It just depends on what level you're on. So I would have to answer that at different levels, whether you're on a management level or you're at a PA level. A PA level, it may not ever feel right because you're the PA. You gotta suck it up.
Essay, do you want to talk about casting?
Yeah. So can you kind of walk us through one of your most memorable reality TV casting experiences, and what are some of the lessons you took away from the experience? What are?
Memorable casting. The one that always comes to mind is Catfish. I was I was a casting producer on Catfish, and my job was to catch the catfish. It's like, and I loved it. So I had to, you know, it was, I mean, there were a team of casting producers on that show, but we all kind of rotated between, okay, I'll catch the catfish, you go get the person that wrote in that thinks they're being catfished. Like, it was fun. So that was, so you're like calling this catfish and you're like, I know who you are. And they're like, what are you talking about? And we had ways of like tracking down who the real person was. And we would just be like, I got your real picture. And they'd be like, what? And so I would, like I said, with casting, I would start talking to the catfish. And it's like, why did you do this? Like, what is the story behind you catfishing this person? It's like, oh, well, I'm her next door neighbor. I'm in love with her and she won't pay me any attention. Or I'm all, you know, it just depends. So I feel like that was the most memorable. As far as like a lesson that I learned, I just like trying to figure out why people behave the way they do or make the choices they do. I know there's always a reason behind it before you judge someone and say, why are you catfishing people? It's like, there's a whole story.
Yeah.
Why they're doing that. And it's an interesting story if you really want to listen to it and get to know that person. So I think for a couple of years, I still had some of the catfish reaching out to me because they wanted to work in television. Like, I want to work in TV. I was like, no. I was like, I'm not hiring you. I'm like, oh, I know who you are. We're cool, but no, you're not going to be my PA. So.
That's so interesting because that show definitely did like shed light on both sides, right? Like you would see, the person that was being catfished, what they were going through. But yeah, you did get into the psychology of like why the catfishes were catfishing.
Right.
How did you like, in what ways did you encourage them to be on the show? Because I would imagine maybe some of them would be like, no, like, how did you find me? Like,
I mean, honestly, with the show, they've usually been catfishing a person for years. They're tired. So when you're talking to them, you're like, I know you're tired of doing this. I know you just want to meet this person because it can't go on forever.
Yeah.
And so they realize you're right, it can't go on forever. And since the person who called in has an idea that they're being catfished, it's like, you're gonna lose that relationship altogether. You can either come clean or they're gonna cut you off. And they would usually say, well, I'd rather come clean and at least tell the person why I did it and try to salvage the relationship. But I mean, once you come clean, they're just like, I can't trust you. But it's still that whole process of, it's up to you. You can disappear, you can come clean and tell them what happened. So, but yeah, that's how we did it.
That's so interesting.
I'm like super impressed by these CIA skills because catfish kind of predates like social media. It's like you can like Twitter search somebody and figure out who they are. Like, I'm impressed.
We had, what was it? We did a lot of, it was usually Facebook. There's usually a Facebook trail. Yeah, there's almost like a catfish formula.
Wow. What other questions do we have? I feel like we asked most of our questions, right, Essay?
Yeah, one more. But I don't know whether we should just get into audience questions now.
Yeah, let's.
Because there's a lot.
There are. Okay, yeah. So we're going to move on to audience questions from our audience. Also, just want to acknowledge everyone that's here. Thank you for joining us. And before we get into audience questions, we just wanted to ask you, Shani, about any projects that you may be working on and if there's any way that we can keep up with you on social Or on TV, since that's where you are.
I'm developing a project right now. I can't say what it is, but I'm sure you guys will know when it premieres. But if you want to reach me on social, don't Facebook me. Don't do Facebook. You can hit me on Instagram. I'm under my company name on Instagram. It's Chloe Management. And,
oh, wow.
Or I'm on LinkedIn, but just don't Facebook me because I don't even look at that anymore. So.
All right, so for everyone in the audience, you can find Shani at Chloe Management on Instagram, and you can also connect with her on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move to the audience questions. So we have a question from an audience member, and they're asking, if I want to make a film about the deaf community, what would you suggest or recommend to do? And on a broader scale, how is the industry working towards making media more accessible and representative?
I would say is this a documentary? Like, I think that's a lot. That might be a question we have to answer.
I don't have specifics. All I have is a film.
Okay.
But in a broader sense that they are asking about accessibility, right? So do you have any advice for them?
I think one thing that I always tell anyone, if you're developing a film, writing a film, have an idea about a film, the best thing you should do is protect your idea. And the easiest way to do that is you can register your idea with the Writers Guild. It doesn't have to be a full script. It could be a log line. It could be a synopsis. You go on the site for a small fee. You register the idea. They send you a certificate with a number so that if you decide that you want to go out and verbally pitch that idea or, send someone on your behalf to pitch it, then you're covered with your intellectual property, so to speak. If you want to make a film, there are a lot of, because I've never made a film. I would love to make a film. Maybe I'll team up with somebody one day. But I would say look into a lot of the film festivals. Look into a lot of the, you have to do there's a lot of research to do. It's one thing to say, oh, I want to make a film. What should I do? There's a lot of information out there. There's AFI, there's Sundance, there are different organizations, notable organizations that actually specialize in female filmmakers or first-time filmmakers or student filmmakers, and they kind of help you get more exposure than maybe you like after college. Like, oh, I went to college, went to film school, I learned all these skills. What do I do with it? I'm going to go make a film with AFI and blow up. That's kind of what you do, and you're still making contacts that way as well. I don't know if that answered the question. But.
I think you basically told them, do your research. Do your research. Get in with some organizations that may be able to help you get your film off the ground, and also to register your idea with the WGA to protect that.
Yeah.
Some of the other questions. This is a kind of fun one. What was your best day working in the industry, and what was your worst day?
Best day. I can tell you, the worst day was probably, which will probably happen to everyone, is, and it happens, is getting let go from a show. That's the worst day. But even that's not the worst day, because that just means there's another show coming up. But I would say maybe the best day, I don't know. Okay. Best day, maybe, I don't know. There's always, sometimes I was on like celeb heavy shows. And I think best day, I know this isn't great, but I think I met Ryan Gosling for the first time, and I thought that was like the most wonderful thing ever. And I don't get starstruck or like, a fan, but I was just like, oh my God. There was something about that moment. So yeah, I guess that's best. It's hard to pinpoint.
We have another question. What do you recommend to folks who want to start a show on Facebook or elsewhere?
I can't really say, because that deals with agents. That deals with you. Like, you want a Facebook watch show, or do you want to start your own show and just air it on your Facebook channel? Like, that's two different. Like Red Table Talk is a Facebook watch show.
Correct.
As opposed to someone who's doing makeup tutorials and they're doing their own Facebook show. Does that make sense? If you sell a show to Facebook, you're going to need an agent. I think that's kind of, and then, you know, develop your agent will know what Facebook is looking for, or be able to pitch an idea to Facebook for you.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I've seen, obviously there are shows that I watch on Facebook Watch, but we've also seen creators, I guess, kind of capitalize off of Facebook. So like maybe they create a series, for example, and the series has its own Facebook page and they're just releasing content like that. But I don't really have the specifics, but thank you for the question.
Another question. After 5 years of developing my own docuseries that I'd host, it's being shopped by a major production company. Best advice for experienced performers new to the television realm on this level?
The best advice. Okay, so you're developing a show, it's being shopped by a production company. I think the best advice is, if the production company is shopping it for you and it gets sold to a company or gets sold to a network, even though you created the show, there's a possibility that the production company will still get all the credit because of how much equity they put into shopping the show for you. So you kind of have to know, okay, if I've created a show and I found a production company who believes in the project and they want to shop it for me, are they putting money into a sizzle to go shop it? Have they rewritten any of the show to make it more marketable? Have they rewritten more than 80% of that show to make it marketable? Because then it technically could be they are the creators. You could be the creators, they are the executive producers. If you don't have experience as a producer or an experienced role on another show to kind of go with your show, the studio could possibly say, well, thank you, you get created by, but that's not even guaranteed. So you kind of have to lay out the terms with them. I don't know if you can get an attorney. That's the main thing. You just want to make sure that you stay attached to your project.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Sounds like you should be hitting up some lawyers. The next question is from Jamari. You spoke about networking earlier. You said that we should really look into getting into the PGA at whichever level is appropriate. Is there anything else you can say about networking? Jamari asked, what would be your advice for trying to network as an undergrad during a pandemic where you may not easily have resources to connect? Like you would without, if we weren't in the pandemic?
There are a lot of Facebook groups. There are a whole lot of Facebook groups, and they're private. So it's almost like you have to be invited to these groups, but there are some public ones. If you just do a Facebook search for, I don't know, PAs and television, some just your search words, groups will pop up. And you'll see how many members are in that group. And those groups will lead you to other groups. And there are also groups on Instagram where they post that they do Zoom networking events like once a month. So I get things all the time. I wish I could do like a doc of all the different groups that I'm in or groups that I get invited to. But again, it's research. you don't have to be physically in a place to network with someone. You need to find groups on Facebook, groups on social media that are tailored to what you want to do, either what you want to be or at your level, so that you can try to figure out who you're going to meet. Where are these people? What groups are they in? And try to get into those groups and get on those Zoom calls and those Zoom networking events where they're introducing each other. And if you need any help, and I'm looking for someone to work on a project, I think that's what everyone's doing right now, because you can't meet in person. So everything is on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
A question from Max, I think. Yeah, so you obviously went to Columbia and then moved out to LA eventually. So they want to know, they're asking if you have any advice about moving to Los Angeles and any advice about changes to the industry due to COVID-19 as well.
Moving to Los Angeles, I would have to say Los Angeles is expensive. I don't want to deter anyone, but Los Angeles is expensive. I moved to Los Angeles from Chicago. I had a full-time job in Chicago as production manager. I was working for a company that was based in Los Angeles and opened an office in Chicago. So they had a Chicago office, LA office. So I was able to transfer to the LA office and start producing a show. That's not gonna happen to everyone. And I'm saying LA is expensive because I know this is probably, everyone says this, but you're gonna have to really plan a move to Los Angeles. If you have friends who have moved out to LA before you, give them a heads up. I'm coming to LA. Can I sleep on your couch for 3 months? You need to give people like a window of time. Why are you looking like that?
That was 3 months is a long time to be sleeping on someone's couch.
Money before then to get an apartment?
If you had a full-time job before though?
I had a full-time job and I was at a friend's house. This is LA. Yeah, clutch your pearls. Go ahead.
Just a little bit. I guess I was thinking about if someone had called me and asked to sleep on my couch for 3 months, I'd be like, excuse me?
You're a good friend. And again, I'm talking about, let me clarify this. Let me just say this. You are going to have a circle of friends that you are going to establish, and your circle of friends, you all are going to be able to help each other. Okay? So I have a circle of friends. I know that if I called one of my friends and said, I need X, Y, and Z, at that stage, and we went to college together, it's like, you've been in LA for a year, I'm coming out too. First, they better be happy to see me, because if not, that's not the person you call. Second of all, it's like, you want someone there with you who understands what you're going through and is gonna kind of help you get through what the industry is. It's not just, oh, I'm coming to sleep on your couch. It's like, no, we're gonna get through this together. Like, you have to get through LA and plan your career together with someone. It makes it easier. It makes it a whole lot better than trying to do it by yourself.
I gotcha.
So
yeah.
I think it's planning. It's doable. You can do it. It's enjoyable. But yeah, LA, If you guys have questions, just email me or find me on Instagram. I'll answer questions.
Here's a great question from Emerson. He said, or they say, because I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't want to misgender you. What is something a cast member taught you that you wouldn't have learned anywhere else?
What I gotta think. Something that a cast member taught me. That's hard because I'm trying to think of different shows. I don't know.
That's what, 10 years of different shows. I'm sure you've met a lot of people.
I feel like I've learned something from every show. And I don't want to say I want to say every cast member has taught me something different about just people in general. If that makes sense. You know, like everyone, it's hard to explain. It's like I leave a show, and based on the people that I've met and I've worked with, it's almost like you have a different appreciation for, I guess, everyone that you come in contact with, because you know you could learn a lesson from anyone that you meet if you really want to. Like I said, if you take the time to get to know that person. So I can't answer that one in detail.
Sorry.
Oh, you got me. You said Emerson?
Essa, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah. How has the pandemic affected production for the projects you have been working on?
I've been at home since February, pretty much. So everything is work from home. No one is really thinking about going back into an office. We're just starting to get calls like to go into the field to shoot. But even that is kind of just like, okay, do we go now or do we wait? And I think the pandemic has ushered in a new form of television, because now you have, quadrant television where it's like your Zoom, like we are now, but it's on television, it's on TV. So you have to find different ways to entertain your audience and your viewer. So, I mean, and I feel like this is just getting started and we're kind of playing it by ear. It may last longer. So I really can't say right now. I just know a lot of people are at home working from home and trying to produce from home via Zoom with a cameraman on the other side.
Right. It seems like TV in some ways has been able to adjust fairly quickly. But I guess that's a little bit more maybe like news, talk shows, stuff like that, where they've pivoted enough to be able to produce something, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's still a screen. It's still screens and cameras. It's television. So I think that's the best medium that would be able to adjust.
Yeah. We're gonna take 2 or 3 more audience questions, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine.
So we have a question from Brad, and they are asking generally about this idea of paying dues. And what are your thoughts for a person who wants to break into the industry but doesn't feel like they can necessarily work for free or for very cheap labor?
Mm-hmm. I would say if you're working, you should be getting paid. And I think one thing to consider is, okay, yeah, it's fine to do internships, maybe 2 for college credit or paid, so you're getting something out of it. But people they throw away the term intern loosely just to get free labor. So you kind of have to be like, okay, what are the job requirements? You want me to be the camera? You want me to do camera, audio, edit, and produce, and this is an internship? It's like, no, they're hiring you to do a job and covering it as an internship so that they don't have to pay you. So I think that's something that you have to look out for, is some of the red flags, and just make sure if it's looks great as far as like, oh, I get to do all this stuff, but you're not getting paid and you can't afford to work for free, then you need to be getting, making what you're worth. You need to research. If you're, let's say, a PA or an AP, you also need to try to figure out and research what is the going rate for a PA with 1 year worth of experience compared to 3 years, that whole thing. And I think Staff Me Up has a rate sheet or a rate calculator that you can find on their site that you can use. I think they still have that.
Thank you for that question. Go check out Staff Me Up.
So going back to kind of the conversation we had about kind of writing the show as in production, Karen is asking, how do executive producers and producers weigh the decision of producing episodes that are discussing difficult topics or heavy issues between the characters that are on the show?
How do they weigh it? Was that the question?
Yeah, how do you kind of weigh the decision to reach certain topics between the characters on the show, or like to air certain things that happen on the show?
I mean, if it's unscripted and it's a heavy topic, you want it to air. Like, that's what reality is. You want the story between two people. A nice story between just me and you is like, okay, that's great, but where's the meat? So these are people. It's human behavior. Like, there's gonna be some kind of tension at some point, or you're gonna do something that I didn't like, or I don't think there's really a decision to be made unless it's like a decision of, is it responsible to keep this storyline going? Is it responsible of us to air this storyline? That's where you have an issue. That's where you have the discussion of certain things that happen on set. You just may be like, ooh, we don't want to go there. That's too dark. If it's too dark and if you go down that dark path, that's something that you generally you want to stay away from.
Fair. We have do you want to make this our last question from the audience essay?
Yeah.
Okay, so all of us are Black women, so I feel like this is an appropriate question from our audience member. Okay. How do you handle the industry as a Black woman? And to kind of piggyback off of that question, in what ways maybe has it been different for you? In what ways has being a Black woman been an asset to you?
And how have you seen it evolve over the 10 years of the industry?
We got the questions.
Good Lord. Okay, ask me the first one again, because that was a lot. And I know I have answers for all of them because I'm holding my head. Go ahead.
So this is the original question from the audience member. How do you handle the industry as a Black woman?
I want to say I handle it great. I mean, yes, I'm a Black woman in the industry, but I'm a Black woman in the industry. There aren't a lot of us. So when I walk in a room, I know that it's probably me and that's it. I don't know. And you have to be confident. You have to know what you're bringing to the table. You have to be okay with walking away if they're not going to appreciate you or mistreat you. And there have been times when I have been mistreated, but there are also times that I'm just like, okay, I may be in a position of being mistreated, but am I being mistreated because they want me out to bring someone else in? And do I want to leave, or do I want to get what I came for? That's the question. So in television in general, you have to have a tough skin. You'll develop a tough skin. You have to figure out when you're taking jobs, when you're working on shows, what is the end game for you? It's a daily kind of just like, it's a daily journey. I mean, once you, and I'm not saying I figured it out because I haven't. I'm still learning. I'm still working in the industry. Things are changing, but it's still very much, I still feel like there's only going to be there's usually going to be me and maybe one other Black producer, maybe, but usually I'm it. What was the other question? Because you have like 4 more in that.
I did. I was asking, how has it been different, or I guess this would be perceived, like what was the perceived difference maybe about being a Black producer, and in what ways is being a Black woman an asset to your job?
It's an asset because if I know that we're producing content that's going to be represent, you know, if it's going to represent people of color in a kind of stereotypical way, it's like, what? No, that's not what happens. That's not what people do. Even if I say it and there's only one of me, they could still possibly do it anyway, but at least I said, this is really stupid. This is dumb. And usually it comes back to be just like, well, that show didn't rate well and we shouldn't do that again. It's like, I told you that to begin with, because that's not reality. That's not real. The other thing is, I think now that a lot of studios and networks are looking for people of color in certain positions, the great thing is they understand that there are stories to be told, and the stories that have been told over the past, you know, decades aren't accurate. Now it's time to say, okay, now I feel like people are coming to me and say, well, what should we do now? It's like, oh, now you want to hear what I have to say? I got plenty to say.
I think that answers your question, right, Essay? Because you were asking about how has it evolved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Great.
Do you have
it for the evening?
Yeah, do you have any last words for us and for our audience? Thank you, everyone who has stuck around with us.
Well, thank you guys. This was fun. I would love to do this again. You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we're gonna wrap it up. For everyone who's out in the audience, thank you so much for joining us. For more programming like this, be sure to check your emails and follow the Career Center on Instagram at @ColumCareer. And also watch out for some programming that they have this week. You should check out, as a continuation of this free summer film school programming. Is this tomorrow? No, 2 days from now. So Wednesday, the director's team with Sarah Malero Bonin. So sorry if I mispronounced that. And also Careers in Sound Design on Thursday, July 30th. Those are 2 programs that we have coming up this week with the Career Center. And since we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and plug myself. Essay, you wanna plug yourself after me? So again, producer here at Columbia. You can follow me on Instagram at Chloe Herring 3. And I look forward to collaborating.
Yeah, I'm also a writer producer, still based here in Chicago, about to graduate. Whoop whoop. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Obrimah. So that's MISS, my last name OBRIMAH. Thank you again, Shani, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes, thank you so much. And everyone have a great evening. And hope to see you guys later in these film programs.
Yep.
Bye.